Welcome to the Credit Union Business News Podcast, the only all-digital, all-business resource for credit unions. This episode is sponsored by Bator Training and Consulting. We create environments where employees actually want to come to work and members want to keep coming back. I'm Kbator, your host for the Credit Union Business News Podcast, and I have a real intriguing guest today, not only the CEO of a great credit union, but also a fellow author. You know, only us fellow authors can understand the pain that we go through writing these things. But let me tell you about her. Her name is Connie Miller. She is a visionary leader with more than 24 years, frankly, of executive level management experience. She has, for the past 22 years, worked for one of the most respected Idaho credit unions, Icon Credit Union, and she has been CEO of that institution for 12 years. It's been ranked number 7 from over 5,500 credit unions as the healthiest credit union in the country. And as I mentioned, she is the author of Don't Sabotage Your Career. I could have used that about 20 years ago. But Connie, welcome to the show.
Thank you. Happy to be here.
Oh, it's my pleasure. We're gonna have a great conversation at a great time. Your credit union was named one of the best places to work in 2015, and some of us jokingly say sometimes when you earn that accolade, you know, it's only downhill from there. But yeah, I know from doing a little research on your credit union that that's not the case. So how do you not only maintain but also enhance the employee experience within Icon Credit Union?
Oh, it's a big investment. What I'm really proud of is that since 2015, we have kept that designation. This last year, we actually ranked in the top 10 for our company size. So we're super excited about that. Yeah, we're very proud of this recognition. It is especially meaningful to me, and I know it's meaningful to our employees as well, knowing that it's determined by our own employees' confidential input. So yeah. I know we're a great team, but it's nice when they provide that input and then it's solidified. I would say the most important component of a great culture is the leadership living the culture values that a company establishes. Yeah. I find myself as the CEO being fully committed to never getting lazy with our cultural values. For example, if we say respect is one, that means we don't disrespect our coworkers when we disagree, or we don't hang our bosses or our coworkers up to dry when they misstep or make a mistake. We don't make fun of the unique members that we have. So respect is a big word, and we really dial in some of those culture values and explain them. I think it's important to also know that no one is perfect. Yeah. And so it's a matter of continually resurfacing the values in every discussion. What I encourage my leadership to do is include a core value in every email, in every coaching session, for example, just to keep them top of mind. Because an employee's experience it's only as good as the commitment to your values, right? And on a consistent basis too. So if one department, for example, starts lacking accountability, it's got to be addressed by the other peer leaders in a really supportive and coachable moment. And so when you have a culture, which is just something I've really become passionate about building, such as one where employees, sometimes you see those poor cultures, for example, where an employee may want the boss to deal with their issues, and they likely, they won't have a good culture then. So they probably lack communication skills kind of in the process. It's been interesting as we've built it over the years. One of the important practices that I believe in really just creating a great culture is to get people to respectfully hold crucial conversations. Yes. Oh my goodness. It is something that we need to master and we need to work on every single day. Everyone must lead into them. They've got to lean into conversations that come with a little anxiety. It builds trust when you do.
Yeah, we need more of those conversations in all of society right now, but that's a whole nother show, probably for
Yeah,
hours.
it is.
Uh, but
I
I
definitely spend a lot of time on it.
Yes, but I so appreciate everything that you said. Specifically, what I usually encourage credit unions I work with is much like you talked about core values, is to use the service standards, which frankly are just more specific words that are based upon the core values. At least that's how I approach it. So it's kind of one and the same. And what you said about the leadership following those values and those standards is so important. I've told this story before, I don't think on this particular podcast, but in my younger days when I actually worked at a credit union, one of the best service standards, and I use this as an example all the time, that I ever read was give people the benefit of the doubt. And I always thought that that was such a poignant service standard because even internally, because somebody says something and you take it the wrong way, and if you could go to that standard and go, all right, let's give her or him the benefit of the doubt that they meant something else, or yeah, they screwed up but they did it with the right intentions or so forth. Let's go from that space and then try to work this out. And to your point, that particular credit union, as great as that service standard was and may still be, the CEO chose not to follow that.
Yeah, it doesn't work.
Well,
Right.
I remember in a conversation, he was bad mouthing one of my best employees and actually called him a piece of blank.
Oh, not good.
Well, and I said, and this is probably, I needed your book then, Don't Sabotage Your Career, because I threw the standard back at him. I says, well, that's a pure example of giving people the benefit of the doubt, boss. And that didn't work out too well for me, but my point of the story, frankly, I
Well,
would go ahead.
yeah, I often use, I'll use the term, what do you think their intention was in this?
Yeah.
And I will actually even ask people that in conversations that I'm having is, okay, let's back up just a little bit. What do you think my intention was of that request or whatever? Because sometimes people get so hung up on the delivery.
Yeah.
And sometimes people are just really good people. It's just their delivery isn't there. And so focusing on what you think someone's intention is,
Yeah.
we often aren't intending to hurt people. We just aren't. We really, it's quite the opposite.
Yeah. Yeah, I often go back to, I know we sometimes like to bash banks, but my first real financial job was at Citibank in the late 80s, dating myself. And I remember the brand new teller supervisor and I had done something for a customer that was against policy. But we did it because we didn't know the policy and we wanted to take care of the customer. And it was a great learning experience from that branch manager because he came in the next day, found out about it, called us both in. And you get called in to a closed door meeting, you already, Jesus, what are we going to deal with here? And he said, you know what? Yeah, I really appreciate what you did yesterday. I would also appreciate it if you never do it again and maybe we could find a different way. But I know that your intent was to take care of a Citibank customer, which is the most important thing. Now what you did, this is why I don't want you to do it again, but you're not getting written up. You're not in trouble. Just let's do this another way. And it turned out to be a hugely positive meeting in that, all right, now I'm encouraged not to do it that way, but I'm also encouraged that, he's got my back.
That's a really good example of how, depending on how you communicate, can come across differently, and how to kind of seek to get to that common success goal, everyone's got to lean into conversations that come with a little anxiety and build trust. That's just what has to happen.
Yeah.
And we've got to do this not just at work, but in society today more than ever. We've got to stomp out that drama and the gossip and the flaring up of things. In my opinion, you can't build a good culture that employees will really enjoy if you tolerate some of those things. It's the biggest killer of a culture.
Yeah.
At Icon, one way we tackle this is that we have kind of an understood no pairing policy, which means you don't pair off and talk about others unless you're willing to pull them into the conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And we just don't allow things like, don't tell them I told you so, but when teams can respect each other enough to address the elephant in the room, in a real respectful manner, it builds trust. Well, the cool thing about that is then it builds accountability, and then it builds performance. And so we learn that skills and expertise in people are only part of what makes you successful. You've got this whole soft skill thing and how we approach things like that. So you mentioned the alignment thing, and I think that is so important, is a good culture of alignment with the company strategies and the culture values will build financial success. And oftentimes leaders they see it as non-productive time to spend on culture because you're either not producing or you're not whatever. But I know, I think getting your employees in alignment with what you're trying to do. I know who, for example, on my team, who consistently has my back during difficult times, and who doesn't. I can give you the list today if you were to ask. And I mean, please understand, it's not going to be a list of people who agree with me all the time, or should it be, right? It's more that we need differences of opinion, but what's really important is that it's to know that it's glaringly obvious to the leaders in your organization who has the senior teams and the board's back and who doesn't. And so many employees actually think maybe they're getting away with it when they're trying to not be in alignment with either values or strategies. So my goal is I just try to live as a CEO where I'm going to give every opportunity to people to own the accountability and be willing to seek to understand and understand others' intentions. And they've got to be willing to do that rather than backstab and make fun of certain personality traits or styles or differences of opinion.
Now a word from our sponsor, Bator Training and Consulting. It's pretty clear that due to COVID-19, it's going to be a long time before any large in-person events will be available in the credit union industry. You may not even want to count on having the GAC or any other conferences in 2021. Sure, there are a number of quality online options to learn, but what about those conversations with your peers during the conference coffee breaks, during lunch, and at the end of the day over dinner? Some might say that was the most valuable aspect of attending an in-person event. That's why we created the Credit Union Business News online collaboration group. The program is based upon the concept of open space technology, a technique I have used successfully within the Police Officers Credit Union Association for years. It's in essence a formalized coffee break conversation that has specific topics that are critical to the credit union industry today. Would you like to learn more about being a part of it? Then send an email directly to me, Ken Bator, at Kbator, B-A-T-O-R, at btcinc.net. I'll be happy to give you more information and invite you to be a guest during the next Credit Union Business News online collaboration group. You know you want to be part of the conversation.
It's interesting. I was blessed, and it really was a blessing. At the time, I didn't think it was a blessing, but I was very blessed to work in a very dysfunctional work environment about 24 years ago.
Yeah.
And it was miserable. But what I learned what it took to survive and to come out on top in an environment like that. And I really just studied why people behave that way when it doesn't make them look good and it sabotages them in kind of their journey. So in a good environment, like we have at Icon today, my team knows I'm not real tolerable when people intentionally try to shake our values, for example. They might be liked. This is what's really interesting. Those people might be liked by their peers.
Yeah.
And they think they're liked by their peers, because sometimes people don't speak up and say something in the middle of a conversation while they're acting that way. But what they don't realize is they're not going to be liked when it comes time to put them in higher leadership positions or be respected to trust them with, some high level things. So I just live every day trying to coach and mentor through things like this. And then it's on the individual to claim and own it. Unfortunately, what many don't realize is how it'll help them enjoy not just their jobs better, but if they can master that focus of some of these things, it actually flows to improving their personal lives as well. So, yeah, not everyone comes into our organization living our values. Of course, every new employee comes in with, their employee, frame of mind at that point in time. And that's okay. We're okay with that. But the number one thing that I hear from new employees when I always do a check-in a couple months after they start, and I always hear, everyone is so nice. Everyone's so willing to help. I've never worked in an environment like this. And so if you invest in it, it makes everyone's life better and more enjoyable.
Yeah, so many great things there. The number one thing is, since we're on recording, can you give me that list of all the people that do have your back and all the people that don't? I told you we were going to eventually have some fun and joke around on this show. I'll let you off the hook on that one and just move on, because I want to get in this serious mode just for a minute, because, you mentioned them being soft skills. And I find, and I'm not shy about being this blunt, is in 25 years of working in the credit union industry in one way, shape, or form, and fortunately, I'm finding a lot less of this today, but I've run into a lot of ignorant, not stupid, but ignorant leaders that think of culture building as soft skills. And as Stephen Covey said before he passed away, there's nothing soft about this, that this, actually taking the time to not just have core values, but build that in your culture and use that language in the mentoring and sometimes even reprimanding of your staff. That's not soft at all. That's hard. And I'm really proud of you, not trying to be condescending, but you're ranked as one of the healthiest credit unions in the country, and you're also one of the best places to work. And I don't think that a lot of people and a lot of leaders may think that you need to sacrifice one for the other. I think that it's almost impossible to have one without the other.
It's very true. And culture is a word that's often misunderstood. Sometimes companies will really tout their culture, and everything you'll hear about them are the fun in the office and the keg in the break room and the ping pong tables, and they will define culture as that. And I do think it's very important that, here's the deal. If you really enjoy each other working together, you're going to have fun together. It's just what happens. We take our team actually camping every year. It's a total voluntary thing. We call it iCamp. And we have done this for several years, and you can show up if you want. It's completely up to you. The company pays for part of the cabins and the activities. And we get some great attendance from that. But that's not only Icon's culture, right? A lot of times companies see culture and they define culture and they think, well, we just need to loosen up and we need to have a little fun, or we need to, provide these extra benefits or whatever. But accountability and performance comes with it, right? And so here's what's important with culture. It doesn't mean that as a leader, if you're building culture, it doesn't mean you're going to know every behavior that the team members exhibit or choose to do. the best advice that I got when we put in our culture values, which was about over 10 years ago now, and the best advice I got was, as a leader, never quit being the watchdog for inconsistencies when it comes to your values. Well, leadership's one of our core values. If you are, and drive actually is one of our, if you are a driven leader, you would have found a solution to that problem with the policy or procedure, or figured out a way to overcome if you aren't reaching your goals. So it's at all levels in the organization. And that's the thing that I just stay in touch with, is teaching the people how to become obsessed at living the culture values within our organization, refer to them often. They're more than just words in your personnel policy or on the bulletin board in the break room or on your website. And you got to educate people on what they are. It starts with the CEO. I started a coffee with the CEO several years ago. I take every single new employee out for coffee, and we spend an hour, and I get to know them. And the primary topic of those coffee sessions is, first, just to get to know the employees who are going to be giving part of their lives to our organization, and but also for them to get to know me. I do believe I'm no important than any other employee in my organization. I just have different responsibilities.
Right.
And so to get them to understand, I dislike it when I hear I'm just a teller. Because we all know our tellers are some of our most important people in our organizations, right? So you just have to commit the time to educate and train on them, and it works. It really does work.
Yeah, it reminds me of number of years ago, I ran a marketing staff, and I had a very, very talented person on our team who many times in meetings would say, well, I'm just a graphic designer. And I think after the second or third time I heard it in the meeting, I said, all right, time out. I never want to hear that again. One, I don't have the talent of graphic design. I can't make anything look visually good to save my life. So, you're a very needed person on this team. So I don't ever want to hear you say that again, number one. And number two, given your graphic design expertise, that's exactly why we need you to speak up, because if our messaging doesn't match what you're trying to create visually, we got a real big problem on our hands. But more important, back to the coffee. Do you take them for like crap coffee or a real good, local small business, well crafted Idaho place?
That's right. They get good coffee and they get to order what they want.
Nice. So if I were
pretty fun.
So if I worked for you, I could actually get like a Danish or an everything bagel or something with that coffee.
Yes, you get to order what you want. Yeah. What's really fun about this though, is employees are kind of surprised about this. And they're like, okay, what am I supposed to do? And what am I supposed to say? And, getting them comfortable that they're just people and I'm just a person as well, I think is really important. I actually did this exercise and it was really powerful. Several years ago, I had everyone track every single time they had a member interaction, like just a yellow tablet tick mark at every single person in the organization. And then we tallied them up at the end of the month. So I had touched 5 members as the CEO in that month. And we built this pyramid and we showed me at the top with 5. And then every layer in the organization, we added the number of contacts that these people had touched a member. So I had touched 5, a loan officer, might be 1,000 or whatever. And we got down and we added the tellers up and there were 17,000 contacts. And it really showed them who is touching the people that are paying our paychecks and that actually are part of our organization. And I show that regularly now because I think it's important for people to remember the impact that they have. Doesn't matter what part they are in the organization.
Yeah, I completely agree. I really like that exercise, and I'm going to blatantly steal it in my consulting and training. But I will give you credit for it. I will say I learned this from Connie Miller at Icon Credit Union. But to switch gears a little bit, selfishly, because I love hearing from fellow authors, tell us more about your book, Don't Sabotage Your Career, 11 Power-Filled Steps to Succeed. By the way, where were you in the 90s? I probably could have used at least 8 or 9 of those darn steps. But tell us about your book and the motivation for writing it.
Yeah, sure can. I'm happy to. So one of my top natural gifts, love in life, certainly my passion, is helping people grow in their leadership and building their personal brands, because I think the two go hand in hand. We spend so much time teaching our young people, even our other people that aren't so young, but we teach all the time about, if you get a college degree, for example, that you're going to be golden in starting your career. And that if they work hard, they'll be successful. And over the years, I've mentored so many people that did everything right in getting their education, getting experience, learning technical skills, but do everything wrong when it comes to building a strong professional brand or exhibiting behaviors. They'll exhibit those behaviors that hurt their reputation as a trusted or respected employee. So over the past, say, probably 10 years or so now, I've heard on several occasions comments like, you really need to write a book someday, or you need to create some curriculum to help people realize how, what they're doing isn't working for them. And so as I started to see folks struggle with advancing their careers more in the last 5 years, it's just, we've got a challenging world out there. That were really smart people, great potential, some great experience, some good education, a nice looking resume. I really decided it was time to get some of those reasons down. And that was the reasons that led me to the book. And so it's been really interesting. I never imagined that I would author a book someday. It was not on my bucket list by any means, but it's been very fulfilling as I really hear from those now that have read it and what they've learned about themselves and what they wish they knew earlier in their career. I realize now, as I've been talking to folks about the book, there is so few leadership books that talk about the obvious behavior traits that are critically important to grow your career. And I've observed employees and family and friends who were sabotaging themselves, and no one is telling them what they are doing and the impact of what they are doing. No one is able to articulate and help people through this when they're doing it. So I've had some personal experience with advancing some superstars who may have been what others might look to and actually be surprised of the advancement that they were willing to make or able to make, because they were simply wise with their professional brand and everyday behaviors during work each day. And what's been fascinating is to see how much those people are admired more than their technical skills. They learn the technical skills along the way. And so, for example, I've seen a young teller grow to a senior exec position in our organization, primarily because that person worked hard to just make sure that along their journey, they spent as much time focused on work ethic and personal integrity and responsible communication and what they do outside of work than spend as much time on those as the technical skills. So when I made the decision, I remember the defining moment when I said, I'm going to do this. And it was after a coaching session with someone that just desperately needed to see this other side. So the first thing I did is I went to work on building self-assessments, which I included in the book for individuals to really take. Every chapter has a self-assessment because I'm a real practical person. For individuals to really honestly assess if they are unintentionally, because I do think a lot of this is unintentional. They really have a desire to grow and to be more, but they don't realize how much they're unintentionally sabotaging themselves in their career journey. And so what's been really interesting is that the rank in an organization of individuals, what I am realizing, has no direct reflection on the existence of some of these behavior traits. that I've shared in the book that can really kill a career, that you would think through experience you would learn, but I'm finding many times it doesn't matter where you're at. It doesn't matter if you're entry level into the organization or in senior leadership, you still aren't recognizing it. And it's hurting you and your team. So yeah, I just went to work on that, and really, I'm a strong observer of people and behaviors, and the chapters in the book actually include information around a variety of behaviors. One of them, of course, that we talked about is mastering difficult conversations, but also, and of course, how you support your boss. But what happens when you fraternize with peers outside of work, or how to stick, this is a big one, how to stick through the tough times to get ahead. In that dysfunctional work environment that I had 24 years ago, the company that I came from, which was a great company, I was just ready to spread my wings and start learning new things, had two different people they had hired that they kept, and then they didn't work out, so they kept begging me to come back. And it would have been so easy for me to go back in my comfort zone of that prior company and get out of this dysfunctional environment. But I remember clearly saying, I am learning a lot right now going through this. And I use that 2.5 years of complete dysfunction and awful work environment. I learned more in that 2.5 years than any other time in my career. And so I could have left and gone back. I would never have the opportunity I have today as the CFO and then later the CEO at Icon if I would have done that. So I think sticking through the tough times when you're short-staffed or you don't like your current boss, or or you're just going through, the company's taking a different direction, whatever. You stick through the tough times, it's pretty powerful.
Yeah. I can't wait to read your book. Like I said, I need to grab it and go back in time about 20 years and apply it. You know, what I found the hard way is that it's not only about IQ, it's about EQ. And in my 20s and early 30s, I certainly had the IQ, I had the degrees, all that knowledge, but the emotional intelligence was a little bit lacking. And fortunately, I eventually learned it.
And you probably had a good mentor. Yeah, no, I think, and we do some of these things we just have to learn, trial and error, right? I certainly made mistakes in my career. Many refuse to acknowledge the importance to grow the skills and gain the emotional intelligence. I actually personally hired a CEO coach as Icon started changing and growing rapidly, and I knew I needed to make sure that I needed to figure out where do I need to change as well, because the world changes constantly and people change constantly. So I also participate in a lot of leadership training on a regular basis. Here's what I find: many times executives forget or prioritize differently than they should. They forget the need to keep growing those skills, because they get so focused on their team and growing their team and their team's behavior, they don't make time for improving their own skills. And to learn how to lead in a stagnant world, which we do not live in a stagnant world, you've got to constantly be educating yourself. So it does matter more how you're perceived than what you actually say sometimes. It also matters if you're trusted to always have your boss's back, or if you tend to sabotage, leadership in the process. So for me, and I have some amazing CEO friends and mentors, for all of us, we want to promote people that we can trust, those that live our values, that they are tasked to lead for our companies. And so my book really was written about kind of those top behavior traits that take people down, in my opinion. And I've watched this. I love playing poker. It's one of those fun
Texas
things that
Hold'em or 7-card stud?
Yes. No, Texas Hold'em.
Yeah.
I love poker. And part of it is I love observing people and reading people, and I actually use those skills in the workplace as well. Someone told me one day, and I'll never forget this. And I see people sometimes get advice from the wrong people too. Someone told me one day to always watch and try to follow those that are ahead of you, those that are more successful than you, not those beside you or behind you. And sometimes we see people struggle because they're getting their advice from a person that hasn't achieved that success yet.
Yeah.
And it's a different world. There's a lot of things you have to learn to grow through that process. So I've learned a lot from those that were more successful in building their careers throughout my journey that I've watched. And being willing to be vulnerable and transparent in those conversations is pretty powerful.
Yeah. Yeah, well, I'm having a great conversation right now, except for the Texas Hold'em thing. I'm thinking about how I lost last weekend with both the straight and then later on with 3 queens, and went all in. So Texas Hold'em is a little bit of a sore subject right now. But to kind of wrap things up, because I could talk to you all morning, but I know you have much better things to do in leading icon. Speaking of leading icon, you've earned a number of accolades. Again, not only best place to work, but awards on financial strength and stability. Is there an award or achievement you're most proud of, and if so, why?
I think certainly the award that I get that fills my bucket, I guess, in my soul every day isn't a big, national award. It's seeing people grow and reach their dreams and all of that. But externally, I would say being recognized for Icon the last several years as a top 200 credit union, last year being number 7 was pretty cool. And I think the reason that is special is that I know that takes hundreds of good decisions every day that fold together to make that happen. Whether it's helping members make good financial decisions, or employees recruiting new members who support our core values, or even a lot of just good decisions about who's on our team, or the decisions about managing expenses or member expectations or all that. So I think that one, being strong and healthy, is definitely one. Probably, so for me personally, for people that know me, I think the even more impactful accolade to me personally is truly that just comes from the fulfillment of being a servant leader. Our world needs more servant leaders. Serving our companies for the right reasons and volunteering for our communities, for me in my life, has been a gift that keeps on giving. And it has taught me so much that I use to ensure that I maintain a fulfilling life, that I keep my life into perspective. Some of the most impactful people in my life, and I have some amazing treasures in my life, in my tribe, in my circle of influence, I met because I said yes to a volunteer opportunity somewhere along the line. It was serving on a committee or a board. And I don't think I don't overthink when I'm given opportunities if I should say yes. And the people that step up and volunteer on boards and committees, even task group or the company Christmas party group, these people are typically amazing human beings that I want in my circle. So I think that is probably the biggest thing, is the fulfillment that I've gotten from really investing in that. And it definitely takes commitment and hard work, but it just keeps on. It's a gift that just keeps on giving back for me.
Yeah, I knew I was gonna get a poignant answer from you on that, and you didn't disappoint. But Connie, Connie, I've thoroughly enjoyed our conversation. I could go on, but thank you so much for joining us today.
Oh, my pleasure. Thanks for having me. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. That means a lot coming from you. The pleasure was all mine. Thank you again. And thank you to all of you that have either watched or listen to this episode of the Credit Union Business News Podcast. And we will be back with you in about 2 weeks with another great guest. Take care. Learn more about Credit Union Business News at creditunionbusiness.com. Suggestions for the Credit Union Business News podcast can be directed to Tim O'Hara at tim@cubusiness.com or Ken Bator at Kbator, Bator, at btcinc.net. To learn more about this episode's sponsor, please go to btcinc.net.